Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to Sunday Roast, a mid-season montage where we talk news, markets and recent midweek takeaway interviews. Before that, how's life treating you, Kev? How are you enjoying summer?
Yeah, it's good. It's nice and hot. The sea, big decisions to be made every day, whether it's the sea or the pool. So yeah, it's good. Been teaching my son and daughter how to read over this last period of time. So I've been reading books
You
and
do the old homeschooling thing, don't you? So
yeah. So we've been doing a fair bit of that every day. Yeah, just trying to eat well and trying to relax.
good.
Which with everything going on is not that easy, probably. But
No,
I've enjoyed the Olympics, I have to say. The Olympics have been a real breath of fresh air. It's been interesting.
Olympics have been very good. Yeah, I mean,
Controversial, obviously, with some of the things, but
yeah, I mean, funnily enough, we were in France. I went over to France at the beginning of, well, sort of middle of July as they were gearing up for the Olympics, and there was a lot of people there, and we sort of met people who were traveling down on the way down to on the Eurostar, or should I say the traveling down on Eurotunnel, and we headed down to Normandy. I actually went down there to see the gravestone of my great-great-grandfather who was buried in Normandy, not too far from the Somme, where he actually fought and died. And I actually managed to find the gravestone. I think I sent a photo of it to you. Dave Evans is in this amazing cemetery, beautiful in this little, it's almost like a hamlet. Drove in, you wouldn't know it was there, managed to find it, and took some pictures of that, found out a bit of history, found out a bit more from the War Graves Commission, found out a lot of information about which potential battle that he perished in, and with some, and he's buried next to some of them from the Middlesex Regiment, from some of his comrades as well, so that was very touching to see. And then we ended up in Amiens, which is a beautiful city. Actually, there was a battle there as well, which I think I sent you a photo or a video of, the largest Gothic cathedral, which was lit up at night with this amazing light show that they put on through summer. And then we stayed in Honfleur, which is a beautiful little fishing village as well, all slate stone and the amazing harbour area. And then we ended up driving down to the Normandy beaches, which you remember was the 80th year anniversary of the D-Day landings. We actually went to see Gold Beach, which was where the British landed over. Obviously all their landing crafts came in. And there was a big art installation there called Standing with Giants, which again I think I sent you a video of, where they had these silhouettes cut out of all the servicemen and women who perished on the day of the landings, all sort of in the fields there with the poppies. It was so poignant and moving. Just fascinating place. So we had a good few hours there and sort of read about the history of the landings. It was phenomenal, really. So that was very moving, obviously. And then I just got back from 2 weeks, and you mentioned about the pool. I mean, there's something really nice, isn't there, about having access to a nice pool and just being able to sit in the sun, read a book, listen to a podcast, get hot, shower, pool, read, shower, rinse and repeat. Like it's very relaxing. I can understand
it's a hard life.
A hard life. I mean, 2 weeks of that, and it I was literally horizontal. But you ever been to Portugal?
Yeah, been to Vila Moura a couple of times, and also up to Porto, where they make the port. Yeah. No, Portugal's a lovely place. The only problem is you're on the Atlantic coast. It seems bloody cold.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So the Atlantic obviously comes down round the western side. We were much further in, as you mentioned, more nearer to Villa Moura, so obviously more on the Med. So the water is still cold because you've got the Med joining it, but actually, as you get further east along the bottom of the coast, heading out to sort of towards Seville in Spain, it does warm up a considerable amount. And because we were there in sort of August, it was getting quite warm, but fantastic. Went kayaking, went into the Benagil caves, which are really beautiful. But it was the 50th anniversary of the revolution. Do you remember that? It was basically, you may even remember it, 1974, 25th of April revolution. The Portuguese know it as the Carnation Revolution. I didn't know this, but there was a military coup that took place on April the 25th, 1974, and it led to the overthrowing of the regime, which I think was called the Estado Novo, which was effectively effectively a dictatorship that had been in place since like 1933 under, it was Salazar and Catano. And basically they celebrate it obviously every year on that date, but this was a big one, the 50th. So there was a lot of festivals and a lot of, I think I sent a photo of a mural, didn't I, with the carnations on it. But basically the reason why it's called Carnation Revolution is because they put these carnations in the barrels of the soldiers' rifles, which symbolise the sort of peaceful nature of the uprising, and they all joined the military because it was a military coup. So that was fascinating. So they never really understood what the whole 25th of April significance was, but you learn something new every day. But
yeah, every day's a school day. I didn't really know that, so I think about Portugal. Yeah.
And great relationship. The Portuguese, very different, aren't they? Very welcoming. I think it's one of the oldest trade agreements between the Brits and the Portuguese, which went back to something like 1170 or something like that. So again, great relationship with the Portuguese. But it was funny because I was talking. My mate lives down there, and he's been down there about 10 years now, and he's been taking advantage of the 10-year tax, effectively a tax regime whereby you are not taxed anything on dividends and pensions. So he's been absolutely loving that. But they announced they were withdrawing it last year, so no one else can take. I think a lot of the Swedish and a lot of the Dutch government were getting a bit miffed because they were losing a lot of their high net worths to Portugal, and they were like, we want a bit of this tax back, guys. So let's have a discussion with the Portuguese and see if they can do it. And they've actually pulled it. So that was interesting to learn that. But
if you had started your 10 years, you can still finish it, or is not?
No, well, that's a good point. I think he's come to the end of his, but they announced they were pulling it last year, so you can't do it now. So whether or not they would allow those who were already on it to finish it, I don't know. That's something I've not looked into, but certainly anyone moving there now to try and take advantage would be disappointed. But
it certainly seems relevant considering what seems to be happening in the UK in terms of
man. I mean, we were out there, obviously.
Extra tax burden, and it seems to be that extra tax burden is being placed on the ones that are in work and can pay it, basically. So
well, the mad thing is, he's now frantically looking for the next country to move to. he's like, right, Malaysia, Cyprus, and I'm like, Cyprus is good. They have some really good, if you invest in a property up to 300,000 euros, you can effectively get a not a residency. Yeah, it's a residency, not citizenship, and you can effectively pay 0% on that, or 5%.
From where he is, he can move down to Gibraltar, but that depends on how much money he's got also as well. And there's Malta as well, isn't there?
Malta's a good one as well. Yeah, Greece is a good one as well, but Malta and that. But
yeah,
I think
there's lots of these visas that they're giving for the mobile people, if you like, the people who can work online.
Yeah. Yeah, the nomadic visas, as they call them. But yeah, so anyway, other than that, you mentioned the Olympics. What have been the standout things you've seen there that have been, you see these moments where you think, wow, this is phenomenal. Like, it's just the power of humans, the tenacity to keep going and pushing. What have you seen that's been standout?
The one thing that really sort of got me going, wow, was the climbing. Did you see the climbing?
The woman who did it in 6 seconds.
I've seen various ones of it. There's been boulders climbing, and then there's the one that they just go straight up, and it's a set position of all the positions. And the guy got the world record, didn't he? 4.75 seconds it was from bottom to top.
10 meters up a vertical wall in 4.7. I mean,
no, it's not even a vertical wall. It's 5% out.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not vertical, it's 5% out, and 4.75 seconds for 15 meters, I think it is. So you work that out, it's bloody fast no matter what way you're in.
I think even monkeys and chimpanzees would have a tough time doing it in that speed, wouldn't they?
So I definitely enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the swimming. I normally enjoy the swimming a lot. I think the British hearts were broken on two consecutive nights in the athletics, with the Americans pipping us in the 1500, was it, and the 400 hurdles, I think it was, or was it the 400 flat?
Yeah, it was. The American came through. It's almost like he took his foot off the gas at the end, but he came through, didn't he? The American, and pipped our guy on the 1500, which was
Mr. Confident. Whatever his name is,
Yeah, Kerr, isn't it? I think he was called.
Yeah, that's it.
There was some really good ones. Did you see the Turkish shooter guy who rocked up with just his suit and his just his normal glasses with his hand in his pocket and got a silver? I mean,
and they were all thinking, this guy's just a hitman, isn't he? He just turns up. hands in his pocket. The celebration last night from the South African team for the 4x100, they got a silver, and they all put their hands by the side
Yes.
and did this with their fingers like shooting a gun, as if to say,
he's become like the thing of the Olympics, hasn't he?
yeah.
Because of the way he rocks up, like the effortless. But that somebody actually
It's a
did. I
bit
don't know
like
if you,
that Hawk 2 girl. Flip me, she's become Miss Famous, hasn't she?
yeah.
Now she's talking to Elon Musk and all sorts of people every time I see it on my Facebook or whatever. The face is popping up. So
Yeah.
sorry, well,
No,
Olympics.
no, no, no. I'm
What was
just
the
saying.
most amazing part for you then?
I think there's been some great athletics events. I think seeing, was it St. Lucia, the women take that, such a small, effectively like an island in the Caribbean, to see the ladies take gold in that was phenomenal. What else has been I mean, some of the swimming, as you say, has been brilliant. I think maybe a little bit of disappointment. I saw Adam Peaty went off in the four by 100 meters or whatever they did, or 4x2. It was the freestyle event, and he put them into first place on his leg, and they ended up finishing with, I think they actually ended up getting a fourth position. It may have been a bronze, but ultimately he got I think, yeah, they did get a medal out of it. But he got a silver. I was obviously, from what he'd been through, I'd love to have seen him get a gold. The
Yeah,
Frenchman has dominated the swimming, really, hasn't he? I think he got 3 golds, or he may have even been 4 golds. But yeah, it's just been great to see, hasn't it? I think I've enjoyed watching the climbing, the relatively new, some of the new ones in there. I've enjoyed, believe it or not, break dancing was new. I watched a bit of that, which I thought was
I
fascinating.
didn't see
Snoop Dogg.
that, but
You see, Snoop Dogg unveiled it. He's become, so Snoop Dogg has been brought on like an ambassador for the Olympics, or certainly for the American team, and he's been paid by NBC, the New York Broadcasting Company. They fully, I think he's paid $500,000 a day just to be there. And he opened the breakdancing, and he was there with this like staff that they bang on the floor. And he was doing all these, like, these robotic sort of his version of breakdancing. And the crowd were going absolutely wild for it. So it's been great to see Snoop Dogg. And he was obviously, Simone Biles, the gymnast, to see her taking gold
yeah,
again after what she'd been through, that was emotional. I think the Mancunian, I think she was 21 year or 20-year-old Kelly. She took the gold as well in the 1500 meters, which I thought was outstanding performance, because she ran away.
yeah.
You see I mean, you
She was
see
probably
her.
the highlight gold really for
Yeah,
the
for
UK.
Great Britain. I mean, to see her pull away from, I think it was a Kenyan runner who was like she had the world record, or with I mean, phenomenal. And also Kathleen Johnson, unfortunately, she got pipped at the end by the Belgian lady, Niam, or Name, and she took gold, and then which meant that KTJ took silver in it, but she dominated the heptathlon through 5 of the disciplines. She was 45 points ahead. She went into the javelin, which wasn't her strongest, where Neve took the lead, and then she ran the 800 meters in the final discipline of the heptathlon for running for gold. But obviously, I think she needed to win by 8 seconds, which was a 2-minute 11 race. She was quicker than the one who was in first position, the Belgian lady, but she needed to win by like 8 seconds, and she smashed. She did a PB at 2:04, but she was only 6 seconds ahead, so she dropped. But
Yeah,
it was great to see her get a gold in the end, and yeah, so it's phenomenal. But should we have a look at
silver
some?
she got. And
Sorry, it's great to see her
the
get
other
a
one
gold.
to see was the 200-meter gold in from Botswana. We have an African nation there, and he should have won 100 as well. To be honest, he was immense. That Seal Tobago. He was like, I was disappointed he didn't win when the American came through from nowhere and so on. But yeah, there you go. But yeah, let's talk about these podcasts that we've done over the last few weeks while we've been doing all of the things we've just talked about. So
Yeah,
first
so
one was electric guitar.
yeah, so obviously we start with electric guitar. I mean, just to add a note, there's been 8 podcasts since we had the season finale, and the first one, as you just alluded to, is electric guitar. We caught up with John Regan, CEO, after the company had announced a joint venture with Excelia Technologies, who are a Cyprus-based software development firm, to launch Marcoms.ai. It's a 50-50 partnership which aims to create AI-driven products combining Excelia's expertise in AI, blockchain, and data processing with electric guitar's commercialization skills and extensive data resources. So here's have a listen to what John had to say on it.
obviously it's a very interesting topic because we're talking here about AI, which is really, really disrupting the advertising industry right now. Just to give you a bit of background and a bit of a refresh, actually, electric guitar, the reason the electric guitar was created is because we're seeing this $800 billion digital advertising industry become very disruptive by two things: changing attitudes to privacy, but also greater consumer expectations about how we personalize. And they kind of conflict because you need data to personalize, but at the same time, people are concerned about privacy. And we've seen legislators reacting to that by bringing in legislation, which means that data has to be more clearly permissioned. And we've seen consumers reacting to that as well by becoming increasingly concerned about the data that gets harvested by businesses like Meta with Facebook and various others as well. So we've got this real conflict. And if you're an advertiser, your challenge is that the thing that you used to do in the past, which was buy this harvested data, it's called third-party data, and it's taken from you by devices like cookies and things that survey what you're doing on your device. That third-party data is getting much harder to access because the legislation and actually the tech providers are blocking it quite considerably. So in the past, what you were able to do as an advertiser is run campaigns where the data was very, very cheap, get people to hit your website. They would come onto your website, and if they bounced off, it didn't matter because there was plenty more mud to throw at that wall, and enough of them were converting into business to make that worthwhile. Now that's much harder. And so now if you are a chief marketing officer, a CMO, what you're thinking is that when people hit your website, you really do need to do something with more with that hit on that website than just ignore them and try and recanvas them if they don't buy. So what that means is, firstly, you've got the opportunity to find out more about them, to engage them, to get what's called first-party data, where people enter a dialogue with you. They permission very clearly with you the type of data that they've given, and you can use that data to improve the way the website works, to give people much more appropriate information. And you can also use that data to re-solicit them. If they've given you an email address or something like that, or they start to log in on your website, you can recognize them, and each time they come back, their experience gets better. And that makes a lot of sense because, if you can't throw mud at the wall, then you've got to make the most of what you have. Now, one of the things which is really important in that context is understanding what engages people, what keeps them on the website. And the way that you do that is you work out what the next best thing to do is. So there's lots of reasons that someone could visit a website. They might just be researching. They might be entertaining themselves. They might be wanting to try your product, or they might be ready to buy. And that's just four. There's lots of other reasons for doing that. And what is really, really valuable is being able to understand at a really early stage where they are in that journey, because then you can serve up the right information. You might direct them towards a brochure. You might direct them towards a product trial. You might give them a discount in order to get them to buy. There are lots of different things that you can do. And that's where what we're doing with the AI joint venture becomes really, really important, because what we realized is the thing that really makes that work is machine learning and AI. Now, I've said to you, I think in the past, the challenge with AI, and there's lots of advertisers trying to deploy it, the challenge with AI is two things. You've got to have the right data. And I talked before about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is incredibly impressive and everything else, but the moment you try and get to the point where you're doing something specific, it starts to fall down because it's a generalist. What it needs and what you need is the right specific data to get the AI to work. And then you need the right skills to deploy that. So the reason for the JB is this. 3 Radical, the business that Electric Guitar bought in May, has not only created first-party data for many, many clients, but it's also stored data around all of the interactions which has gone through its technology. So they're sitting on about 1 billion data points. And we believe that data on its own can be used to make those types of predictions on how to engage people using machine learning. So our first opportunity with that AI joint venture, and we've already started work on that, is to create the machine learning that means that where our clients where our clients are working through Radical, we can predict at a really early stage how to optimize that experience to get the type of engagement they want. But we believe that more generally, we will be able to spread that across websites. But that's actually just the beginning, because also what we've realized is as this develops and as we work with more clients, as we work with more acquisitions, the data which we will have access to also becomes greater. And so we will get to the point where we've got even more data than the 1 billion data points I've talked about, and even greater ability to start to look at how this engagement works and deploy the latest AI technology to really optimize that for our clients in real time. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us to be working to develop this, JB.
All right, so then we caught up with Hydrogen Future Industries. We had a good chat with Tim Blake and Dan Mailing from HFI to discuss their recent exciting news, which basically was announced regarding the licensing and territory agreement to develop a pilot green hydrogen production system in Ireland. And this is what they had to say.
Well, Ireland is a place where I've been dealing with Ireland for quite some time, a number of years, close to 10 years, I guess, on the energy side. And really over a period of time, we had a lot of interest in taking the technology to Ireland, especially under their current energy issues that they have. And it was really a natural step to bring it forward. So we sort of got together, people wanted to buy a license into Ireland that we still retain a decent chunk of, to really hit two sort of markets. It enables us to then get our technology out and demonstrate it in a particularly good environment in terms of, for us, Ireland has issues with a grid that's really at overcapacity. It's quite an old electrical grid, and they're desperate to bring in new industry, new technology, and they really haven't got the capability to do it as it sits. So taking energy into areas where currently the grid doesn't reach, so predominantly the west coast of Ireland, will enable them to focus their own energy on development of things like data centres. So it was good for us to do that. As time goes on, it will sort of grow. There's a possibility of doing manufacturing and the like out there as time goes on. But right now, it's really about focusing on production of hydrogen and also the farming industry.
So, Tim, I mean, Ireland's had huge energy issues over the time period. And also, it's, even from a government perspective, it's been very green orientated, almost to its detriment in terms of putting off gas that they've got there in the Irish Sea and all sorts of things. So how do you envisage that, the government and people are going to get behind this?
Well, as I say, I mean, I've been dealing with people within those sectors in Ireland for quite some time. So it's an area that we're not new to when it comes to their issues. Ireland, being where it is, sort of at the end of the gas line or electrical line.
That's right. It gets the leftovers, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Comes through the UK and then whatever's left.
Yeah, so, I mean, the average price of electricity in Ireland is 4.5 cents per kilowatt. The rest of Europe's about 2.2. So it's almost double. Certain areas got hit pretty hard when, for instance, the EU removed dairy quotas in Ireland, well, across Europe, which really opened up the Irish then to having to compete with the rest of Europe, for instance, for things like milk that had been pretty big within industry. They were suddenly disadvantaged because the cost of energy was double the price of other areas in Europe. With the grid getting away from those areas, the last couple of years, really, we've been to several events in Ireland where they've been trying to develop things like biomethane. Hydrogen's become more and more a topic over the last year, where they desperately need to try and lower their carbon emissions. So Money Point's a really expensive problem for them. It's a big power station on the west coast near Shannon. And lowering those carbon levels whilst increasing their energy capacity is a big problem. Really, they need to increase the size of the grid, but that's just too expensive. So you need solutions that can be off-grid, but also green, and then maybe supply backup for the likes of data centres and other sort of new industry. So with doing that, the West Coast, obviously Ireland's perfect for hydrogen. It's windy and it's got a lot of water. I mean, two things you really need in our case to produce hydrogen.
There's no doubt there's a lot of water in Ireland and a lot of water from the sky as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the West Coast, I mean, ironically, the West Coast can be too windy for current in turbines. It's pretty turbulent. It suits our system well, and there's not a lot of energy. They're desperate to develop industry on the West Coast. They have done for years, but the grid really is centred around Dublin and Belfast. There's very little for the rest of Ireland. You can't just suddenly rock up with some industry on those coasts of any size. So hopefully that fits into what we're doing. And the farming side, just to sort of nail that down, the farming side, we've been dealing in the past dealt with some of the large dairy producers in Ireland. And the large cooperatives own 6,000-7,000 farms apiece. And just trying to take those off the grid would be substantial and try and lower their costs. And farmers like that kind of side. Just the dairy side in Ireland alone is a ridiculous amount of energy each year that is required to do that. So it sort of fits in. It will take time, but it fits into our system really well.
Yeah, and the third one we did was with Fast Energy, and it was basically giving us the hybrid results for July, which now it sort of seems like this is out of the fire, if you like, in terms of being able to survive as these engines start to be developed. And hybrids looks like it's going to look after the whole thing along with all the other stuff that we've got. So have a listen to what Peter has to say about that, and see you in a minute.
We're very pleased with the maiden operating results from the first refurbished genset. So maybe just as a quick reminder, we started with a refurbishment program at Firebridge a few months ago with the first of the three 2.7 megawatt Yenbach gensets. We successfully completed that first overhaul at the end of June, and we started commercial operations of that refurbished genset on the 1st of July. And the plan was to see, carefully monitor what the performance of that refurbished genset was for a number of reasons, including to give us an indication as to, what the potential revenue generation of the site as a whole over all three engines can be once all the engines have been overhauled, and also to then pave the way, for the overhauls of the remaining two gensets. So, that box has been ticked now. Very attractive, being 51 refurbished gensets. So that translates to circa £21,000 of revenue per megawatt per month, which gives us an idea of the potential revenue generation for this site. So everything looks good. As planned, we're proceeding with the overhaul of the other two engines, and Firebridge is really showing that this business can work and work well.
Very good. So tell us, obviously, you had a revenue of £57,000 with. Basically, that was from original startup. So do you see that being slightly higher in the future, or potentially higher as we move into August, September, October, etc.?
That's a good question, Kevin. So looking at kind of, two elements regarding revenue generation. On the one hand, there's the technical aspect, so operationally on site. And with the first refurbished genset that started commercial operation on the 1st of July following its refurbishment, there's usually kind of a settling in period of around a week. That's not, with the engine getting into optimal generation. So I think with that, the way now, we are expecting enhanced technical performance from the genset. So yes, to answer your question, we do expect even better performance from the genset. And then also looking at the market, July has seen quite a bit of wind, and we're a natural hedge to renewables generation and to specifically wind generation. So when the wind blows and wind turbines are up, we don't generate, and vice versa. When wind dies down and we can't generate, then we come on stream. And there's been quite a bit of wind during July. And nevertheless, we still had a very good month. Typically, looking back historically, and we expect that trend to follow that trend again, is the peak, especially October. That's usually the peak demand months for gas speakers. So we are expecting enhanced numbers going forward.
So from the point of view of the second genset being re-established, refurbed, what sort of timescales are we looking at there?
So we will follow the exact same process we did with the first genset. Starting with signing the engineering works contract with Cooper Oslands, the O&M contractor on site, and getting the associated funding advance from our strategic funding partner, Riverport, at asset level. So all exactly the same we did previously, and then the refurbishment program is expected to take around the same time as the previous round, so around 8 weeks from start to finish. And as with the previous round, we'll update the market regularly as usual.
And has that begun, or it's going to begin?
So we're almost ready to formally commence. So we just had to wait for the July numbers to get confirmation, which we have in hand now, and we will now proceed.
Okay, so then we caught up with Colin Bird regarding Galileo Resources, and whereby we discussed the commencement of Phase 1 drilling on licence 28001 in northwest Zambia. Have a listen to what Colin had to say.
It's a follow-up to the announcement that we intended to drill the licence 28001 in Galileo. It's right slap bang in the western foreland that the the trend continuation. I'm going to say we think, we know, of course, because there's been work which has proved the progressing trend down from Congo through to Angola. The rocks are right, the underlying, the precursor for drilling is all right. And we announced a couple of weeks ago that we were getting things ready for drilling. And now I'm very pleased to announce that we've started drilling and, we've invaded the ground, so to speak. And the target depth is, well, we're actually, this all is a very true exploration hole, Kevin, aimed at investigating all of the structures and mineral and lithology that goes towards Kamoa. And of course, if we're lucky, we'll have an intercept. But the whole idea of hole number one is to get some penetration, get some depth, get some lithology, so we can get the third dimension to all of this in 28001.
So what sort of depth do you think it's likely to go to then, Tom?
You tell me. If we interpolate surrounding licenses, the Congo, and of course a lot's happened between Kamoa, even though it's only about 900 miles to ourselves, we would expect to see some evidence of lithology, the type of structures, deposition, redox fronts, etc., that would lead to mineralization. And as I say, we could well intercept mineralization with our first hole. So ask me where the target depth is. On the basis it is very, very true exploration, I'd say I didn't know. If you said mentally, and according to what the group has seen, our team has seen, about 350 meters, we would basically stop, think, reevaluate if we hadn't hit mineralization. Depending on what the team thought, we'd either continue the hole or relocate according to what we find or we found.
Good. So just so people understand, what is above your licenses? Like what? I mean, people need to visualize this themselves. Okay, so you got DR Congo or DCR Congo, then you've got Zambia, then you've got Angola almost in a straight line. So what is above you in Zambia, DCR, that means that this is on trend?
Well, the Western Foreland is well evidenced, and it was our group that, in actual fact, in conjunction with First Quantum, who did the first drilling a couple of 1.5 years ago now, and actually went through the Western Foreland. And this word has crept into geology, Western Foreland architecture. But that's what lets us know that the trend is there. Our own sort of surface work in the various licenses has led us to sort of know that the trend is there. We talk about to the east the thrust and fold belt, and that's extremely well named because that's what it is. Thrust, fold, and very tortuous. And then, of course, the Western Foreland is more consistent where we're drilling at the moment. To the north of us is an extract license. Obviously, again, very, very prospective, and we're excited about that. And then to the north of that extract license is the border post, if you like. Takes you through into the Congo, and 90 miles away sits Kamoa. Kamoa, of course, to the west of their mine, did in actual fact come up with a new discovery. I think they announced it at the end of last year, but they've got Kamoa-style mineralization, and they've certainly got a second mine, I think, in the making. And of course, they're very excited on the progression southwest, the Western Foreland, which takes you into Zambia. And that's why I guess they've pegged out an area as big as Switzerland in Angola. It should be said that this license actually butts up against Angola, butts up against extract, which butts up against the Congo. So we're all in that sort of triangle there, into that sort of where Congo, Zambia, Angola meet up. Those licenses are situated. But that particular license we're drilling now is parallel to the Angola border and about 20 miles south of the Congo border.
And it's also adding at the end of that they also had some more news on Friday of last week from Shinganda as they become set to commence the Phase 3 drill program, targeting a 10-kilometer strike length of copper-gold mineral-bearing structures. The RC drilling aims to delineate shallow, open-pittable mineralization and define a substantial resource of supergene mineralization with a grade of up to 2% copper equivalent. Initial drilling, including up to 30 holes spanning 2,400 meters, is based on recommendations from recent geophysical studies and prior drilling results. Drilling is scheduled to start mid-August 2024, with Colin expressing high expectations for the mineral potential of the area. And then the next one, we caught up with Leon Kurtzer from Jubilee Metals. I think this is probably the most popular one in terms of a number of listens. We actually talked about the commencement of operations at the Rowan Upgrade project in Zambia, obviously long overdue. which boosts the processing capacity to 13,000 tonnes of copper per annum. And that's in the broader strategy to expand their overall capacity to 25,000 tonnes per annum and leveraging the ongoing Sable refinery upgrade. So have a listen to what Leon had to say.
It's been a hard slog to get to this point, and we had to overcome a number of challenges, but it's particularly exciting to be in a position now where we have both Rowan's current operations running and the new front end coming in as well. And then, of course, as you said, Sable running and being expanded. It's a great milestone to have achieved.
So how close do you think this is going to take you to the 20,000 tons of copper per annum that you were aiming at?
Kevin, it's putting us in a great position. So we're sitting, as you said, with a plant in Rowan. It's two components, right? It's the Rowan that was operating already, plus this additional component that's got a 13,000 ton per annum capacity. And then we're taking Sable by within the current financial period up to a 16,000 ton per annum facility. So combined, we comfortably reach our 25,000 ton per annum operating footprint. And as we've explained to the market, and there's a beautiful slide that actually draws it out for investors on our website being loaded, that shows that as Sable becomes a dedicated refinery of open pit mining operations, Rowan's concentrate is being squeezed out of Sable as that capacity has been taken up by the open pit. And it means, therefore, that Rowan's capacity becomes additional to Sable as that concentrate is sold into the market. And already some of Rowan's concentrate is already being sold into the market as the two operations come into their full fruition.
So what's the next? I know everybody's should be cheering that this has actually happened because you have come across many different things, both from a practical point of view in terms of energy, from a practical point of view in terms of getting the right resources so that you can then process this stuff. But what are the next steps for Jubilee in terms of this? If you're telling me that once these mines come on board, move into Sable, then your 13,000 tons at Rowan is then going to be sold as concentrate. As Jubilee, that seems like a bit of a waste. Normally you won't want to sell the concentrate, you'd want to turn it into copper itself. So what are the next steps?
That's true. We speak of that in the announcement, Kevin, quite right. What investors can expect and our shareholders is a constant update as these open pit resources continue to grow. Monkoy project, which we acquired in June, is already operational and delivering its material to Sable. Project G, which is number 2, is expected to be completed within August. And then, as we told the market, we are targeting several that is well in progress in their review at the moment. So those projects will be coming into the market quite rapidly. Then you're quite right. When you look at Rowan, we as an investment review set down for later this year, will review whether we start expanding Rowan to start incorporating a refining component at Rowan. At the moment, Rowan makes a high-grade saleable copper concentrate, but you are right. You want to ultimately get the full value of your copper, and that is to take it to copper plate or cathode. And therefore, we are reviewing whether we will continue to expand the Rowan as it becomes its own dedicated, not only concentrator facility, but also refining footprint.
Yeah, and then 6 to 1, we caught up with the Energy Pathways and the CEO there, Ben Klube. Really, that was talking about politics, I suppose, and the financial implications behind the Marram project, both gas storage and getting the gas out the ground there in the Irish Sea, which obviously there's a lot of potential, a lot of need for. And yeah, have a listen to what he had to say.
Energy Pathways is an integrated energy transition company, and we're looking to develop opportunities in the UK energy space that provide the UK with energy security and clean energy supply to support its journey to net zero. And our MESH project, or the Marram Energy Storage Hub, is a project designed to meet those strategic objectives. So we're looking to develop this energy storage hub located off the North Lancashire coast, about 11 miles offshore, to provide a clean energy supply to meet the UK market needs as it transitions to net zero.
So, Ben, the situation that our new government chancellor, Rachel Reeves, confirmed last week, I think, or maybe even this week, but was basically now that the decarbonisation investment allowance was set at 80%. So these companies that are having huge amounts of tax to pay in the North Sea and on any stuff that they do there, they're allowed to reinvest those profits and get an 80% allowance on that. Is that the way this will work, or am I misreading this?
Yeah, so the energy profits levy was introduced under the previous government, and it's been amended on a couple of occasions previously. So these recent announcements by the new government are amendments to an existing fiscal structure. In the changes that have been announced by the new government in a number of areas on the energy profits levy, firstly, there was an increase to the override tax rate, so moving it from 75 to 78. There's also an extension to the sunset clause, and there was a statement of amendment to the investment allowance structure and capital allowance structure. And let's say all of those would have an adverse effect on the general conventional oil and gas sector. The point of interest that we've highlighted in our release is the statement that the existing decarbonisation allowance, investment allowance of 80% has been retained. And we take that as a signal that projects moving forward that are under the energy profits levy regime, where there are investments and steps being taken to decarbonise energy supply and development, then this decarbonisation allowance is an attractive feature for that. So, and it marries well with the project that we're seeking to do, whereby we are seeking to deliver decarbonised development and energy supply into the UK.
And MESH itself, just give people an idea of the Marin project and what it will involve and why it is effectively a green project to bring this gas online.
So MESH is sort of the key attribute of the field is that it has excellent high quality reservoirs which are well suited for storage operations, in that stored energy in the form of gas or hydrogen can be produced and delivered from those reservoirs quickly, and that's an attractive feature for a storage asset, in that as the UK energy demand profile becomes more intermittent with increased wind penetration, the utilisation of a gas, at least initially as a transition fuel, will have much more of an intermittent demand profile, and being able to source energy supply from these reservoirs essentially on demand will be an attractive in the future UK energy landscape.
You say initially as a fuel that will keep us till we are 100% renewable, but is that really realistic? I mean, to be 100% renewable, because the wind doesn't blow, the sun doesn't shine, and whatever else we're going to use for renewables aren't necessarily always going to be there. Do you not see that, or do you not feel that there's always going to be a requirement for some sort of fossil fuel, whether it be gas, whether it be, the petrol, the diesel, whatever, in our system? Or am I dreaming?
No, not at all. And I think that's well recognised. What you're saying is that, and with the new government, they too share the view that natural gas is going to be a key part of the energy mix for decades to come. So it's about how gas is going to be used as wind capacity is expanded within the UK, and that trajectory is still planned for the UK energy mix. So we're looking at renewable wind capacity increasing from where we are now 2 to 3 times. But as you've rightly said, there will be periods, and that's clear, that the wind doesn't blow and energy demand needs to be met. And in terms of a technology perspective, that demand is really seen to be and understood to be met by dispatchable gas.
All eyes on Finland, as we caught up with Jonathan Owen, CEO of Metals One, whereby they'd just been awarded the contract for a preliminary economic assessment to Wardell Armstrong for their black schist nickel, copper, cobalt, zinc project in Finland. So that was a really good, interesting RNS, that one. And let's have a listen to what Jonathan had to say.
Just over 12 months since listing, we've doubled the resource base, and that has allowed us to very quickly move into the next stage, which is the economic assessment. So this is a major milestone for the company, and as you mentioned, it potentially unlocks non-dilutive EU grants and the strategic project status that comes with the EU Critical Raw Materials Act. So it's a hugely important step for us. And as you mentioned, we're aiming to get this completed by November, so it's quite a quick turnaround, and so you'll see plenty of news flow over the next couple of months as this develops.
Very good, Jonathan. I mean, from the point of view of people looking at Metals One, why would they look at you now and think this is worth investing in?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. In terms of the development of the company, you could look at us as an exploration play a few months ago. We've definitely drawn a line of that and moved into the development phase, which is, for investors, for existing shareholders like ourselves, bear in mind the board, hold over 10% of the company. This significantly de-risks the opportunity here as we move into this phase. What the PEA will give us is the project economics. It'll give us an estimate of the internal rate of return, the capex required to build the mining operations, and the NPV. And with those in hand, you can very easily, very quickly then attribute an enterprise value to the company, which you can't do for an exploration company. They tend to be highly speculative. So yeah, it's de-risking, putting a big dollar value on the company and paving the way for the future in terms of next steps, getting into through the stage gates to development, unlocking non-dilutive funding as well. That's one of the primary objectives of this exercise as well. So where we are at the moment in terms of share price, we're pretty low. I mean, hugely undervalued, and that's on the back of low volumes, very low volumes. So yeah, we're looking to get more eyes on us with this news and get people to join us on the journey.
Yeah, I mean, at a market cap of sort of somewhere in the region of £2.5 million for the potential size of this, it seems. I mean, we had this conversation the last time I think did the podcast, and there was some other companies in similar situations, and their valuations were 10, 20, 30 times what your current valuation is.
Yeah.
So is that the market? Is that because they're on a different market? Is that because they're in a different jurisdiction? But at the same time, your jurisdiction is seen as a very positive one, I would imagine.
Yeah, in terms of mining jurisdictions, investment jurisdictions, Finland is regularly voted one of the most attractive investment jurisdictions for mining projects, and that's thanks to it's a stable European country. They've got stable mining legislation, low costs in terms of royalties, etc. Plus, then you also have strong workforce, local service providers that know mining. It is a mining area. In terms of like your point about the markets, yeah, I would speculate that the TSX, the Toronto Stock Exchange, where a lot of our peers sit, may offer more liquidity to those plays. But also, these peers have been doing this now for quite a while, so they've established a following, long-term holders and brand awareness. Basically, we're 12 months in, so it's coming, and we just need to accelerate that. That's the aim of the game.
Yeah, finally, we met with Richard Forward, who's the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Electric Car PLC, regarding the acquisition of MyMy, I think it's called, which was actually a company that was partly owned by quite a few of the directors, and they'd set it up as a sales arm. So that was done at arm's length. That's why Richard was involved. So yeah, have a listen to what he has to say about it. It seems that it's a very sensible acquisition, and is going to help Electric Guitar going forward in terms of its sales ability to some of these mega clients that they've got.
It is a very interesting acquisition for us because the business we're buying is just part of our buy and build strategy, which is what we talked about all the way along. And it's called MyMine, and it brings us a couple of things. It brings us sales and marketing resources that Through Radical had outsourced before we bought it. And so bringing that in-house now enables us to use it more efficiently. and also saves us quite a lot of money because it becomes more efficient. So there's quite a lot of value that comes in with MyMine. The thing that triggered it, by the way, is that we started bringing in-house the sales resources that MyMine had anyway. And it got to the point where it made much more sense to sort of do that completely. And that's what we did.
So tell us a little bit more about what they were actually doing for 3 Radical.
Okay, so 3 Radical for the last year or so before we bought them had been retrenching and really had cut right back on their sales and marketing activities altogether. And so as we were going through the process of negotiating the deal to do the reverse takeover of 3 Radical, they hired MyMine to actually provide some extra sales and marketing resources, but it would only be on the basis that MyMine got paid if and when and after we actually completed the reverse takeover. So MyMine took quite a risk on putting in place business development, restructuring the website, monetizing and looking at how to productize better the 3 Radical products. And that got paid for after we did the RTO. So we were paying for work that had been done before we bought the company, before we bought 3 Radical. And we're also contracted, the contract was ongoing. So there was an ongoing contract. What they're doing is adding a lot of UK-based salespeople or sales resource, business development resource, media buying, expertise in crafting the website. You'll see we relaunched the website about a month ago for the product and so on. And so there's been a lot of work that's gone on in the last couple of months since we bought the business.
So the CEO that is now in place at 3 Radical was the CEO of this company that you just purchased as well?
He wasn't CEO. He was a key employee of it, Jeremy Saul. And yes, we poached him really from MyMine. And he was the one that came on board. And that's triggered the process really to do the entire deal.
Okay. And the connected party situation then in there, just explain a little bit more about that.
Okay. So that goes back in history. And I joined Electric Guitar about a year ago. So this is before my time as well. But MyMine was set up before Electric Guitar was set up by our chief executive, John Regan. And when he then floated Electric Guitar as a SPAC, he pulled back from operations in MyMine, which was then developing software, as well as providing sales and marketing support to other businesses. And ever since Electric Guitar was set up, all dealings with MyMine have been conducted by independent directors, including myself, who have no interest whatever in MyMine. And that's been the case all the way through. So John came off the board of MyMine, and he's not been involved in any of the negotiations or discussions or arrangements between Electric Guitar and MyMine since Electric Guitar was floated.
Can you just explain to people how that's happening, what price these shares being exchanged at? And I think there's 3 parts to this deal, isn't there, really, from what I could see?
Okay, so it's an all-paper deal. There's about £70,000 worth of shares that are being issued on completion. So it's not a huge price because that's more than covered. If you just look at the contract prices that we're paying out to MyMine for the next couple of months, that's more than covers the consideration, the completion consideration. And then in a year's time, there are 2 conditional payments at about the same amount again in total. So it gets up to about £150,000 worth in total at today's share price. One of them is just on the basis of roughly half of it is conditional on Jeremy Saul, the chap we recruited from MyMine, still being on our books in a year's time, which is fair enough. The other half is self-financing because it's a percentage of the revenues we get from using MyMine's software. So insofar as we do that, provided we get value out of the software, then we'll pay them some more money, but up to a cap of another £80,000, I think, £100,000. But that's all self-financing.
Okay, so the software would be used then by whom?
Okay, so this is software that we would add to the offering that we do already with Voco, which is the product that 3 Radical already has. And it breaks down into sort of 3 parts. The bit that I've liked best is what's called situational targeting. Are you familiar with contextual targeting of advertising, which is where the ad is placed is related to the value of the ad? So is it placed against a football match or placed against something else? So the demographics of the viewer then understood. Situational targeting also takes account of how the viewer is actually receiving the ad. So it may be someone seeing it on his mobile, it may be someone on a laptop, it may be someone in the morning, it may be someone in the evening, it may be someone having a cup of coffee. Whatever it is, you can pick up a lot of this information. And that's called situational targeting. And you can then target, a marketing officer can then target advertising specifically to someone who's in that situation. So it could be somebody that they already know. is a middle-aged man looking to buy a BMW, who's been researching that sort of thing, but is also on his way to work. He's only got a quick amount of time. He's looking at this on his mobile. You can actually take all these factors into account and market to him according to those factors and change the way you market. That's situational targeting. And that's a bit of software that exists within my mind. And then we're looking to apply that for the benefit of our customers, but alongside Boko and anything else, all the other software that we'll be buying.
Good. So even though it's been a summer period, we've been quite busy in terms of news flow, haven't we, really? It's good to see these small caps actually getting news out there and not sleeping and actually continuing with delivering news.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other companies that we didn't do a podcast, mainly because it was too busy, was also Oliver Friesen of Golden Metal Resources. So there's quite a bit of news coming out from that as well. But yeah, we can cover that hopefully next week and sit down with them and have a good chat about what's been happening.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at some of the other the movers and shakers since our last podcast. So about 15 trading days. UKOG, UK Oil and Gas. Don't really know much about them since that whole Gatwick Gushers scenario, Sanderson from many years ago, but they're up 280%. PPP, Penn Petro, another one on a favourite on the bulletin boards, has done extremely well in the last probably month or so, but it's up 260% in the last 15 trading days. EPP, obviously one we just alluded to, 45% up. I'd probably say that one had been oversold based on even from its IPO price, and it's moving back up. It's, as I say, it's back up to, is it about 2.6 pence mark? Certainly was on Friday. Yeah, 2.7 pence. It was up some 14% on the previous trading day on Friday. So that's done pretty well. Chess, CHSS, World Chess up 115%. Well, I think their market cap's around about 120 million market cap. Seems a little bit lofty for what it is, but it's good to see them moving as well. And then onto the shakers, we've had Entog, Nostra Terra Oil and Gas, they're down some 65%, and then Guild Esports as well, down some 65%. So not ideal. But what do you make of? I think we also had on the markets, Kev, this whole new American and obviously the Japanese market. The Nikkei was down some 15% one day. I think it's recovered quite a lot of those losses. There was rumors of American markets going into turmoil. What do you make of that?
It was the Japanese market that started the process. The Japanese market was down 13%, and the reason why they believed that the Japanese market was down 13% was basically because of the strength of the yen. Okay. Yeah. So what happened was that over the last 3 to 4 months, the Japanese market has gone from 0% interest to 0.1% interest to 0.25% interest. Now, you wouldn't think that the interest is going to make that much difference for people borrowing in yen and then investing in something else. This is basically swing trade, or a trade that they take the money, or they borrow the money in one currency and then go put it into another market in another currency, whether that be US or whatever. Well, what basically has happened here is that the yen has strengthened against those other currencies. So people were losing money against that currency. So what did they have to do? They had to then change their money back and lose. And this is what has caused a big sell-off in the Japanese market for people to be able to do that. But the interesting thing is the following day, the Japanese market was up 10%. Yeah. So we had a big wobble. And I think it made a lot of people question, are we at the top? Are we at the top of the US market? Anyway, because we're definitely not at the top of the UK market, that's for sure. Or even any of the European markets. But I think what I perceive is going to happen over the next period of time is that there's going to be a rotation of stocks. And we've been talking about this for months, but I can see it coming more clearly now that there is going to be a rotation of stocks, overpriced stocks, to underpriced, undervalued value stock, and more on that scenario is that we've gone from virtually, I think, a quarter of the S&P 500 was in resources, whether that be oil, gas, gold, whatever, to I think it's less than 5% now. So the reason being is because the value of those companies has gone down so significantly. So I'm still predicting that a huge number of these companies that we're talking about, HFI, talking about MASH, talking about Galileo, Jubilee, EPP, Metals One. They should do very well, in my view, in the next period of time. And that's not mentioning 20, 30, 40 other ones that we could mention. You know, Golden Metal Resources, even the likes of Conroy Gold, Brilliant Diamonds. We had announcements this week all over Zambia, really, didn't we? We had Tertiary Minerals with a joint venture. We had Arc Minerals starting to drill. We had Galileo starting to drill. We had Extract starting to drill. Got African Pioneer drilling already with First Quantum. So there is huge momentum that stuff's going to be found, and a lot of money is going to be spent in those jurisdictions, especially Zambia. Yeah. So yeah, but the reason why this happened was that. But you can imagine something like this, and quite a small event can have such a massive impact on literally wiping billions, if not trillions, off the stock market in the US.
Well, I think they said that on that day alone, the Magnificent Seven, as they refer to them, you know, the Microsofts, the OpenAI, the Nvidias of this world, had $900 billion wiped off their market caps. I mean, get your head around that just on one little wobble.
And that wasn't even the full wobble, because the US recovered at the end of that day effectively. So I mean, there's been different predictions that the S&P 500 next year will drop to 3,750, 4,000, 4,200 from different market commentators. And we're currently sitting, I think, 5,600, 5,700. So that would be quite a comeback if that happens. S&P, 5,344, but at its height, it was 5,700. So,
I mean, the FTSE recovered pretty well. So the closing price on Friday was like 8,168. It was up 0.3%. So it's almost, it's always been around, say always, for the last 2-3 months or even longer, it's been over the 8,000 mark, which seemed to be that. So it's pretty much, normal. S&P 500 was 5,344. Dow was 39,497, Nasdaq at 18,513, Nikkei 225 was 0.56% up at 35,025. So it was almost like nothing's happened.
Yeah, and we had a big wobble in Bitcoin, I think, as well. And then you look at what has happened in the markets in terms of the gold price, silver price.
I think that there was also fears of over the recession in the US, but I think on Friday they got some reassuring data on that US economy, on those. Obviously the jobless claims came in below the forecast, which has sort of tempered that kind of like almost calls for emergency rate cuts, wasn't there, from the Fed Reserve earlier in the week? And I think it said, it's all under control now. But
a lot of panic, wasn't it?
I think the UK's dropped the interest rates has come down a 0.25% to 5% from, so it's cut since March 2020. So it's been, it's been consecutive rises and rises. It's the first cut. So that, I think a lot of people expected maybe the US would they follow, or would we do the right things? But ultimately,
they're going to follow by the looks of things for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the thing. I was reading commentary on the investing.com site of the amount of debt now in the US. At effectively $31.5 trillion of debt now is outstanding, and that now accounts for in the region of 45%. The interest payment on it is 45% of the monthly tax take in the US. Now, if you add national insurance payments or the things that the government has to pay on top of that, it works out at just over 80% of the money that the US is bringing in is already gone, immediately, just like paying your mortgage or whatever. So how is that sustainable? Because it's not far off that reaching 100%. So for them to survive, they have to have interest rates higher. Lower. If interest rates go lower, we're going to have more inflation. And then, you're then going to get into the cycle of interest rates fall, interest rates go up again, interest rates fall, interest rates go up again. It's a difficult situation that I think they now found themselves in. And their only solution in the past period of time has been print more money.
More money, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't see that that's going to stop. They're just going to increase the ceiling again and go for it.
Yeah. Okay, well,
But what it says is you've got to devalue that dollar. And if you devalue that dollar, then what happens? I mean, the potential scenario behind devaluing that dollar is everyone's going to want to cash in their debt, because if it suddenly is going to get worth less, then you're not going to want to hold it. So then you talk about financial Armageddon to the US and probably the rest of the Western world as well, to be honest. So, well, on that great note.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. The two books I was talking about reading by the pool. I got through two books, recommend them. One of them, a bit light-hearted, Billy Connolly, obviously probably the most loved comedian in Great Britain. Rambling Man, funny. Basically, it's based on his travels. You know, he's a rambling man. He started off as a welder on the shipyards up in Glasgow, and he's travelled around the world for BBC on documentaries, and been all around New Zealand, the bush, and America on road trips. Some great anecdotes from his stories, and he's a great raconteur, a great storyteller. Some very funny, laugh out loud moments by the pool with that one, if you fancy something light-hearted. And then a very interesting one, which I'm going to have to give you the book now I've finished it. It's called Material World by Ed Conway, and it's basically a fascinating look at materials, and obviously a very important ones at that. It was shortlisted for the Financial Times and Schroders Business Book of the Year award, and it's also been picked as Book of the Year by, I think, the Times, the Financial Times, and the Economist and New Statesman, and BBC Radio 4 have given it the Book of the Week accolade. But basically, this journalist, Ed Conway, he travels the globe and he goes to different depths and deepest mines in Europe, to basically silicon chip factories in Taiwan, green pools where lithium originates, to uncover this sort of secret world that people would very rarely see, looking at various commodities, substances, mind-boggling journeys, different processes, looks at how things are made, how some of the little-known companies that take these raw materials into obviously the products that we need today and depend upon. So do you want to take a guess at what these 6 materials are that he goes into in depth?
Aluminium.
No.
Iron ore.
Iron, correct. 1.
Oil.
2.
I presume that's oil and gas.
Yeah, that combines hydrocarbons.
Gold.
No.
What we use.
Yeah, this is more, it's got actual uses in terms of, important in the sense of building our world and transforming our future.
Like sand, the glass.
Sand.
I'm trying to think what you would make.
One that you absolutely we talk non-stop about. Copper. So you got four out of your 6 glasses. The other 2, salt, salt and lithium. So it's sand, salt, iron, copper, oil, and lithium. They built our world and they will transform our future. So you'll love the read. It talks about how sand has been used, as you say, in terms of building and glass, and salt and the industry, and how that's been used to transform the way that we operate. It's fascinating. And then obviously the Iron Age, and then on to copper and how we take for granted when we turn lights on and electricity. And it's fascinating. You'll absolutely love it. So I'll give you a copy of that when you come over next.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds very interesting. I've been reading Riverboat by Wilbur Smith for the 5th time, I think it is. It's all about Egypt and about them and battles and the history of Egypt. It's well worth it. It's part of a series of 3 books: River God, Warlock, and the Seventh Scroll. And the Seventh Scroll is an amazing book as well. So, yeah, I decided I would start to read a book that I knew I would enjoy reading, even though I sort of
sometimes good to revisit books and get again and again. You forget over time how well written they are, or you forget some of them, and you think, wow, this is phenomenal. A good book, you should always keep hold of them. I'm not a fan of people say I'm a hoarder, but I actually quite like revisiting these good books.
Yeah, absolutely.
So very good to talk. Obviously, this is a bit of a mid-season teaser, and obviously looking back at the montage of some of the latest midweek takeaways we've done. We will be back on the 8th of September with our normal Sunday roast spot. But in the meantime, thanks for listening. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for any future notifications of future episodes.
Yeah, and remember, enjoy your song.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.